Good evening. Welcome everyone to the November 19th meeting of the Milford Planning and Zoning Board. If you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. Thank you. Sue, if you could please call the roll.
Mr. Agnesi?
Present.
Mr. Allen?
Present.
Mr. Anderson?
Present.
Mr. Hirsch? Mr. Collegian?
Present.
Mr. Macchio?
Here.
Mr. Mortimer?
Present.
Mr. Sadi?
Present.
Mr. Zahardis?
Present.
Chairman Quish.
I'm also here. First order of business, David, if you would please explain why 1455 Boston Post Road is on twice.
Because it's both a special permit and a CAM, and they have different requirements. So if you'd like, they can be done together under the special permit public hearing section, but because a public hearing isn't necessarily required for the CAM, that's why they're broken out.
Okay, so if there's anybody that objects on the board, no objection. Without objection, if the applicant would like it heard together, then that's fine with us. Okay, so this is 1455 Boston Post Road, Zone CDD5, petition of Sarah Sharp Esquire for coastal site plan review for a fast food restaurant on map 90, block 805, parcel 16, of which 1455 BPR LLC is the owner. Also, we have a public hearing, 455 Boston Post Road, Zone CDD5, petition of Sarah Sharp Esquire for a special permit for a fast food restaurant on map 90, block 805, parcel 16, of which 1455 BPR LLC is the owner. And we are hearing both at the same time, and the applicant has the floor.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. I'm Sarah Sharp, 135 Broad Street in Milford. I'm a land use lawyer representing Raising Cane's Restaurants, LLC. I know that you're familiar with the project and the application. Tonight we have before you a special permit and CAM application for the proposed Raising Cane's Restaurant and Drive-Thru at 1455 Boston Post Road. This application is the culmination of a process that we started more than a year ago. In November 2023, we were here with our first regulation amendment, and that ultimately didn't pass, but we got some really good feedback from the commission. We listened to your comments. We worked with staff to come up with a new proposal. We made changes to our concept plan at that time, got more parking on the site, and you ultimately approved a fast food parking standard in June 2024. This was always where we were headed, and so we're happy to be here tonight with our complete special permit and CAM application. This has gone through your rigorous staff review process. All of the department comments have been satisfied prior to this formal submission this evening. On the screen, I just wanted to start with the street view of the property. This is from when it was operating as the Milford Bank location. If you've driven by any time recently, I think you know that the property doesn't look quite this nice now. It's overgrown, and because the building has been vacant, it's just a little bit in disrepair. Even so, I wanted to highlight this because it really is kind of a sea of pavement. There's no streetscape here, and I want to keep that fresh in your minds when our landscape architect walks you through the revised landscape plan, which is really nice. So I have our team here tonight. We have Wayne Violet, our landscape architect with Bowler Engineering, Andrea Sue, our architect with ADA Architect, Aaron Fredette, our traffic engineer with Bowman, and Michelle Robinson is representing Raising Cane's in case you have any operational questions that I can't answer. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Wayne, and then I'll talk to you at the end of our presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, Commission members. My name is Wayne Violet, Project Manager and Landscape Architect with Bowler. Address is 65 LaSalle Road, West Hartford. What we're going to do tonight is take a little bit of a tour through the site plan to walk you through the different components of the plan. And just as Sarah had just mentioned from our team, we're also going to walk through the landscape plan, which we feel is pretty robust as part of this package. Once we do that, we'll turn that over to the next person. So as a reminder, project address is 1455 Boston Post Road. Acreage of the site is just under an acre at 0.9 acres. Current zone is CDD 5, which is the Regional Business District Corridor. As just mentioned, the current use or the former use of the site is the existing bank. What you see on the screen is just an existing aerial of the site. As far as neighboring uses, what's around our site, to the east is a current fast food restaurant, which is Taco Bell. To the north, from an orientation standpoint, is Boston Post Road. To the west and to the south is Rose's Mill Road. And across to the south on Rose's Mill Road is a current shopping plaza, which is owned SCD, or Shopping Center Design District. Next slide, please. What you see on the screen is our current site plan for the project. For a use, this is a restaurant with drive-through. We have 2 proposed access points on the site. These are the existing access points for the current site. The first is located on Boston Post Road. It is a 2-way drive access with limited access, right turnout only. The access point from Rose's Mill Road, which is on the southern part of the page, is a 2-way drive and full access. That's at an existing traffic signal. Next slide. The difference between this last slide and the one that's on the screen now is just a little bit of an easier zoomed in view of the site plan. The restaurant itself is 3,304 square feet. It does include outdoor seating as part of the package. We have 23 parking spaces located on site, which meets current code. 2 of those spaces are ADA spaces. I'll walk you through just to the north of the building itself and kind of wrapping around to the south. We have a 2-lane drive-through that can accommodate up to 30 queuing spaces. The trash enclosure for the project is located in the northeast corner, shown there. And building entrances for the restaurant space are there 1 building entrance on the east side, and there are, I think, 2 building entrances on the north side facing Boston Post Road. Just a quick overview on the site, which we just covered, but a quick overview on stormwater. We can certainly answer questions if you have more detailed ones after we've presented. We have been reviewing our full plan set with town engineer and been working through those comments. The existing site was serviced by a series of dry wells that were connected but not connected to the street. As part of this package, we are not only reducing impervious coverage, it's not a substantial amount, but in fact we are reducing impervious on site. We're also improving water quality, which isn't occurring today. We are adding a hydrodynamic separator to our stormwater package. We have a fairly large underground stormwater system underneath the parking lot. And we have a series of catch basins which are connected to the town system. All utilities service the site, and again, we can go through in detail if we need to later, but the site is currently serviced by all available utilities. And if we could go to the next slide, please. I want to talk a little bit about the landscaping of the project. We had seen that image a little bit earlier on, which is the street view, and other than some maintained lawn areas and some relatively minor landscape areas, we took this project as an opportunity to really add some nice landscaping in the public realm along the frontage areas as well as around the building areas. We think we have a significant landscape package which is part of the application. I think consistent with town of Milford standards, we have a diverse plant palette inclusive of quite a few native species or locally adapted species for this particular project. For front landscape areas, we have been locating on Boston Post Road and Rose's Mill Road up to 7 proposed canopy trees that are located on the plan. Currently, the site is, like I said, mostly maintained lawn. There are a couple trees that are out there now, but we're really filling in those gaps and really adding quite a nice canopy edge along the perimeter of the site. For parking interior, we've got landscape islands and areas along the building. We're meeting interior spaces that we need to and interior quantities. In fact, in our latest design or latest edition of the landscape plan, we're even going above and beyond code, which is really something that we typically do where we can. I will point out that if you're familiar with the site, along the eastern edge, there's an existing vegetative buffer between our property and the neighboring restaurant use. The plan is to maintain that buffer and provide some pruning and trimming as necessary to keep that looking good and maintaining a lot of that good vegetation there. Next slide, please. This slide just shows you, again, that a little bit of that plant palette, that diverse scheme that we're really trying to propose as part of this package. In total, we have 9 canopy trees that are being proposed, 2 ornamental or flowering type trees that are proposed on the site. We have more than 100 shrubs that are utilized along frontage areas for screening and along building areas. More than 100 ornamental grasses and ground covers that really help accent the site. And again, just really a diverse plant palette that's native, multi-seasonal. And here are some of the species here, everything from maple and dogwoods to some of the ornamental grasses that are shown on the screen right now. Really quite a nice package. And just before turning over the mic, just a quick highlight on site lighting. Site lighting as part of the site plan package includes all LED fixtures, full cutoff, dark sky. We are underneath, as far as the site lighting poles, the maximum height allowed for town of Milford, which is 20 feet. Our poles our mounting height is mounted at 17.5 feet. And then we meet all the average foot candles that you would have in standard of care for parking areas and around the building. So I just wanted to mention that as far as the site lighting. And again, if you have questions after we go through our presentation, we'd be happy to answer them. But for now, I'll be passing over the mic to Andrea from our architecture team, who's going to walk you through some visualizations, elevations, and materials of the plan.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Andrea Sue. I am the project manager and architect with ADA Architects. The address is 17710 Detroit Avenue in Lakewood, Ohio. I'm here to talk to you about the building. Overall, we have about 3,400 square feet of area. We have a mixed occupancy, A2, and a capacity on the interior of about 95 people. We do have some patio seating, as you can see there on the screen, just about 5 tables with about 20 people that can be sitting on the patio. In general, we bring architectural interest. It's provided through the use of repetition patterns of color, texture, and material modules. We use brick, architectural panels with a wood texture and warm colors. And we also use metal accents in black. We incorporate recesses, projections, and transparencies into the building on all 4 sides of the building. As you can see there, you're seeing there the primary entrances at the north of the site. Those are clearly defined and are framed by an architectural element. In this case, we have an awning that also provides shelter from the elements. I wanted to mention also that, can you go to the next one? Thank you. We're seeing there the drive-through entrance on the parking lot and Roses Mill Road. We are providing on the elevation that faces that intersection on the other side with all the same elements that we're providing on the elevation on the front and the side, but what we will call the front and side of the buildings. Just so we have a nice presentation to the public there. Okay, I'm going to turn it over then to, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, Erin Fredette with Bowman Consulting, traffic engineers on the project. I'm going to give a brief overview of what we've conducted for the project, but of course happy to answer any questions at our close. So for this project, we conducted a full traffic impact study focusing on the project site driveways as discussed earlier, one on Boston Post Road, which is unsignalized, one on Roses Mill Road, which is signalized, and the adjacent intersection of Boston Post Road and Roses Mill Road. We looked at Friday midday, Friday afternoon, and Saturday midday peak, given the retail nature of this corridor and in alignment with Connecticut DOT guidelines. We look at existing conditions, so we did traffic counts at each of those study area intersections at each of those time periods in order to understand how traffic flows today. We then project out into the future in coordination with CTDOT. We try to encapsulate potential growth in the area and grow those volumes to establish a future year baseline condition. Once we establish that, we then try to estimate the number of trips specifically associated with the project so that we can understand the potential impact that those trips would have on the study area network. We do that utilizing the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual, which is industry standard for a fast food with drive-through land use. Once we understand the estimated number of trips, we then distribute them onto the study area roadways based on existing travel patterns as well as proposed project access. Next slide, Kelly. As mentioned previously, there are 2 driveways to provide access to this site. The rear driveway or the signalized driveway on Roses Mill provides full access so you can turn left through right or into or out of the site. The driveway on Boston Post Road allows full movement in, so you can turn right or left into the driveway, but you can only turn right out of the driveway. So once we understand the anticipated travel patterns, we then layer on the trips to the future baseline conditions so that we can do a comparison of operations between the future year without the project and the future year with the project. We conduct our capacity analysis to establish a level of service or the quality of traffic flow through here. And based on the addition of the trips estimated in the impact study, we see that there's no change in level of service to any of the individual movements at the study area intersections, and virtually no change in the overall delay experienced by vehicles at these 2 intersections based on the additional trips. We also look at stopping site distance and intersection site distance for the unsignalized driveways to make sure that cars both traveling along Boston Post Road and exiting the site can see each other so they can enter and exit the roadway safely, and those all exceed the minimum and desired requirements as outlined in AASHTO. So based on the study, overall, this project's not shown to have a significant impact on the study area intersections. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Sarah to wrap up.
Thank you.
Hi, so just one other thing to note, the police, the traffic division and the police commission reviewed our traffic study. They agreed with our findings, including that there would be no significant impact on the traffic conditions and that they have no objection to our plans. They also made note of the fact that there are no safety deficiencies at the existing site driveways and that our Boston Post Road driveway will be limited to right out only. They approved the submission with no conditions. I also wanted to note that we did receive a few variances from the ZBA. Those were noted in the town planner's report. As I'm sure you can notice that this is a unique size and shape for a lot in the zone. It has a less than the minimum required lot size. It has significantly less than the minimum width. We have 3 frontages, which is why the building has been designed so that all of the elevations look very nice. There's no really back of house. Every elevation has the same quality as the front. We also have, the 2 driveways and significant 50-foot setbacks. So it did create some site constraints, but at the same time, the circulation with the 2 driveways made it a really good location for the double driveway and to ensure that there would be no queuing onto the Post Road. I did want to note, and I provided Mr. Sulkus with a copy of the additional variances granted in October 2024. Those were for the accessory setback on the dumpster location and for our ground sign location. So with the variances that have been granted and otherwise the project as presented is compliant with all bulk requirements and standards. And with that, I would open it to any questions and we can have our team come up. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments at this time? Mr. Anderson?
Good evening, Attorney Sharp. I had, when this proposal was before us earlier, I had questions about the internal controls relative to traffic. First of all, I'd like to ask, would a patron be able to access the building itself?
Yes, patrons can order inside, yes.
They can order inside and then take out?
That's correct.
There would be no interior seating?
There is interior seating. Just like most fast food restaurants around, there is interior seating.
Got it. So I wanted to be clear on that. I could not tell from the schematics what kind of pedestrian controls there are on the site.
Pedestrian walkways around the parking lot?
I see the perimeter, but not from the parking area. So I just wanted to point that out. And then I also have concerns about the fact that if there are lanes that are queuing up, what's to prevent someone who's in the far right-hand lane from taking a left-hand turn? What kind of controls would there be in place?
Can I just clarify, the far right-hand lane of the drive-through?
If somebody's in the drive and they're to take a right-hand turn onto Rose's Mill, what's to prevent them from making a last-minute decision and going left instead and out Boston Post Road? What type?
So anyone, I'm going to try to answer your question. I'm not sure if I'm
in other words, what kind of controls are there at the end of those driveways to convince a driver to do what you're asking them to do?
Okay. So in the first instance, I just wanted to point out that the outside drive-through lane will only be open during peak times. The standard will be that the internal lane is the only lane open unless it's a very peak time that warrants additional lane being open. From our study of stores that are open, our average queue length is about 15 vehicles after the honeymoon period, and we can accommodate that in the one lane. When you open up both lanes, it gives us 30 to ensure that there's no queuing onto Post Road, but most of the time, the internal lane will be the only one that's open. If the outside lane is open, there will be an employee stationed outside that's running food from the window to the driver. A vehicle exiting the drive-through would be permitted to take a left and go to the far Boston Post Road lane, to the far Boston Post Road driveway. We aren't prohibiting that. I think it would operate as any double drive-through where you're cognizant of the car next to you and you sort of go in turns. Although I think that as the facility is operating, it would be more convenient to just take the right. It's quicker and loop around. So in terms of leaving the site on Boston Post Road, they have to take a right. There's the island in the middle will direct them to take a right out.
There will be an island, in other
Yes,
words.
yes,
Okay,
sorry.
that's what I really want to
Okay.
get to. So there will be stop signs and an island.
That's correct.
Okay. And striping, presumably, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So the question still remains whether there's striping or some kind of pedestrian control from the parking area into the restaurant itself. And I'll just leave that there for the moment. My further question would be about the state DOT and the state traffic commission. Have they weighed in? Will they weigh in?
So to date, the State Traffic Commission actually won't be reviewing this specifically because it's under the major traffic generating thresholds of 100,000 square feet and 200 parking spaces. But we will be presenting this to CTDOT for an encroachment permit for the work within Route 1.
Say that one more time, please.
Sure.
I need to hear it.
Okay. The OSTA, the Office of State Traffic Administration, won't be weighing in on this specific project because it is below the thresholds of a major traffic generator, and it's not already a major traffic generator that we would be amending.
In other words, the project is not a major traffic generator.
Correct,
Right.
correct.
All right, because your traffic study does show 1,100 vehicles.
Already on Boston Post
Correct.
Road, yes.
Right.
Yeah, but the project itself isn't generating enough traffic to exceed that threshold.
Thanks for that clarification.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Attorney Sharp.
Good evening.
I have similar questions to Mr. Anderson's. Let's talk about the exit onto the Boston Post Road in the northerly direction. You talked about the right-hand lane, which is great. We can't tell from the plans how large that island is going to be and what kind of markings are going to be on it.
Wayne Violet, Bowler. Our visual may be coming back online here, but yeah, the island that is being proposed at the Boston Post Road entry is a raised island. It is mountable, but it is a raised island that we can get the specific dimensions, but it's going to be ranging anywhere from 4 to 6 feet in width, and it's actually just showing on the screen here as that MC configuration that we have proposed on the plans. But it is a raised island in that area to deter that left-hand movement.
Thank you, and I guess I appreciate that answer. The question I have is probably for your traffic consultant. So I thank you for your answer. We've all talked about the fact across the street from, and again on Rose's Mill Road, there's a project that was approved by us. It's very large. But there's a stoplight there where the Taco Bell is. And did you do any studies to determine that stoplight affecting traffic flow coming out of your proposed Raising Cane driveway that brings us out of Rosen Mill, where somebody's going to be taking a turn out of your driveway to the left?
Yes, so our study does include that signalized intersection, and normally I would say that adding in a driveway could introduce additional delay or queuing, but in this particular instance, the driveway opposing it from Milford Crossing runs at the same time as what will be the Raising Cane's driveway. So when the green is on for Milford Crossing, the green will be on for Raising Cane's, and so because of that, there's quite a bit of time in that signal already dedicated to Milford Crossing that would also be shared by Raising Cane's. And so when we do our capacity analysis, we use a software that does understand the volume of left turners, right turners, and through cars from both directions, and it takes that into account when it does its calculations for queue and delay. And so based on that analysis, the delay for the Milford Crossing exit is not shown to be significantly impacted.
Okay, I appreciate the answer. I'm just trying to get my hands around the fact that I believe the Taco Bell is the one that has the light. You come out of Taco Bell directly, or is it?
It's not. Taco Bell gets its own separate phase. So when the signal is actuated, and so when there is a car at the Taco Bell driveway, it will get its own signal phase. It's relatively short. I want to say it's like 12 seconds. But our driveway is the one that shares the time with the Milford Crossing driveway.
Correct. And did you do a study showing that the cars coming off the Post Road on Roses Mill Road stopped at that light? And because usually when there's a bank there, there's one or two cars coming out. You're talking possibly 15 cars in a turn. Would that make any difference?
So based on the analysis, we're not showing any significant queuing. We're showing at the site driveway, at the signalized intersection, 1 to 2 cars queued during that peak hour. And really that comes down to, yes, there are 15 cars in the drive-through, but they're not all exiting at the same time. And so as the cycle or the light cycles through, there's only ever anticipated to be 1 or 2 cars waiting for that signal, which should have more than enough time to be able to exit with the amount of time at the signal, even out as it is today.
Okay, and the follow-up for that is, let's suppose you can only get 1 or 2 cars out, but it's again, this is supposed to be a great program, a great restaurant, so you got 30 cars in the quay, and there's only 2 cars that can turn. You could be blocking the cars coming up to the line. Has that been anticipated, discussed, and determined what the way to handle that problem? In other words, cars coming out of the drive-through, taking the right onto Roses Mill, whether they take a right or left, but this could be blockage because of the light.
Right, and so we have some queuing. I think you can see that the stop bar for the light is quite a bit closer to the travelway than it is the property line, so we should be able to stack 1 or 2 vehicles without encroaching on the drive-through. And then, as mentioned, that outside lane is really only going to be for very peak times, and so we will have additional queuing. That's one of the benefits of having 2 driveways here, is it does give that flexibility to be able to go out the Boston Post Road driveway should you realize that that's queued and you don't feel like waiting.
Thank you, and I don't know if it's the same person, but there was a discussion about somebody would be bringing food out to a parked car. Could somebody talk about that, maybe Attorney Sharp? Is that a specific location for that kind of car, or just whatever the empty spot is?
Hi, yes, just to clarify, when I was talking about an employee running food out, it was for the outside drive-through lane. The outside drive-through lane isn't adjacent to the window, obviously, so when that outside lane is open, there will be an employee station there that will be bringing food from the window to that drive-through user on the outside lane. It's not to a separate parked area.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Just a question for you, Attorney Sharp. It's not obvious for me, based on the location, why this was required to be presented as a CAM. I just wondered if you would mind explaining that.
Yeah, it's just a little bit odd. There's, I believe, a river sort of close enough that we just happen to fall into it, but it's a developed area, so there's really No coastal impacts, as was noted in the staff report and in our CAM application with our engineer. We can go into it in more detail, but basically it's just a quirk of the radius from a coastal river.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Vitan.
I have a question for the traffic engineer. Just so I'm clear, can you state your ultimate opinion about, because I'm not a traffic engineer, you're the expert, right? You're the expert. What is your ultimate opinion? Can you restate it simply as to no significant impact on queuing? This location and the way this is configured.
So when I say no significant impact on operations, it means the movements on the existing roadway network. So at the signalized intersections, the cars that are already there, they're not, based on the analysis, are not shown to experience a significant additional delay because of the added traffic.
All right, and in your opinion, what would constitute a significant delay in queuing?
A significant increase in delay, it really is context dependent, I would say, but here we're talking a matter of seconds. Overall delay is shown to increase by a second or so for the overall signalized intersection.
Can I add something?
Oh, sure.
Commissioner Hirsch, if I can just add, in the police commissioner's review, he did make note specifically that the levels of service at each location were showing either no change or a negligible change. The only reduced level of service was on Boston Post Road at the Roses Mill Road and Red Bush Lane during a Saturday midday peak, and that delay was only 2.4 seconds. So that is what constitutes a negligible delay, and that's what was found here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments at this point? Seeing none, this is a... Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think it's more of a question for either you or Dave is, do we have the authority to deny this application over traffic? Since we're the planning and zoning?
If you have an expert that counters the information that was given, keeping in mind that the police department is also the traffic commission for the city and they approved it. So you have to have expertise that counters both another branch of the city and the applicant.
Right, okay. No, I just want to make that, I guess, clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, this is a public hearing, and we would invite the public to speak if they'd like to. If you'd like to address this issue, please come to the podium. Seeing none, without objection, we will close the public comment, and if there's no further questions, then we can hear a motion. You're welcome to close, though. I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to say I appreciate all of your questions, and if there was anything else that you have a question in your mind, I would ask that you ask me now when I can get our experts up here to speak to you. If it comes up after you've closed the public hearing, I won't be able to provide you with more information, and I know it's an important decision, so I just would like the opportunity to respond if you have anything else.
Well, I understand. Well taken. Is there any further questions? Okay, so without objection, we'll close the public hearing, and I will hear a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is regarding 1455 Boston Post Road, Zone CDD 5. This is specifically regarding the CAM site plan review. I move to approve as presented the petition of Sarah Sharp for a coastal area site plan review for a fast food restaurant on map 90, block 805, parcel 16, of which 1455 BPR LLC is the owner.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Just to be clear, there's going to be two votes. One is for the CAM. This is the one we're addressing now. And without further ado, we would call the roll, please. Susan.
Mr. Agnesi.
With the motion?
Mr. Allen.
With the motion?
Mr. Anderson.
With the motion.
Mr. Hirsch.
With the motion.
Mr. Collegian.
With the motion.
Mr. Macchio.
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer.
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi.
With the motion?
Mr. Zaharis.
With the motion.
Chairman Quish.
I'm also with the motion. And at this point, I would hear a motion regarding the special permit.
Mr. Chair, this is regarding 1455 Boston Post Road. The zone CDD5, this specifically is for a special permit for a fast food restaurant. So I move to approve as presented the petition of Sarah Sharp Esquire for a special permit for fast food restaurant on map 90, block 805, parcel 16, of which 1455 BPR LLC is the owner.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, please call the roll, sir.
Mr. Agnesi,
With the motion.
Mr. Allen,
With the motion.
Mr. Anderson,
With the motion.
Mr. Hirsch,
With the motion.
Mr. Collegian,
With the motion.
Mr. Machio,
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer,
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi,
With the motion.
Mr. Zaharis,
With the motion.
Chairman Quish.
I'm also with the motion. I'd like to commend you on your perseverance and nice plan, and I wish you the best of luck. Next order of business is a public hearing, 40 Rogers Ave, Zone R 12.5, petition of Joseph Codispoti for a special permit with a site plan review to modify an accessory building on map 44, block 409, parcel 2, of which Frank Iana is the owner. Applicant has the floor.
Hello, my name's Ron DeRilio. I'm the architect on the project. I actually signed the application, so I don't know why Joe's name is on it. He did a CAM application. So we're asking for a special permit, site plan review to modify an accessory building, which is 12.7 feet from the tidal wetland boundary. That 12.7 feet is to the deck portion. The actual building foundation is 20.7 feet away from the tidal wetlands. The existing structure is to be lifted and remodeled on the interior. The existing basement will be removed and a new foundation will be put in place. The proposed work is zoning compliant. It is located on a very large lot, 1.6 acres, in a R12.5 zone. The accessory building is approximately 200 feet back from the road. And the primary house on the property sits about 40 feet from the road. So there's a little bit of a distance from the studio to the main house. The building sits on top of a bank overlooking the Milford Harbor, and it has spectacular views from the top of the bank to the tidal wetlands. There's an approximate 15-foot drop on the bank. Currently, and in the future, the owners will use the building as a craft studio and a gathering spot where they go look at the water and the boats, and use their patio and their deck. The footprint of the structure and the deck will remain the same. The shell of the building, basically the walls and the roof will remain intact. The structure does need some repair work, and the basement has a very low head height. So we're raising up the structure and getting another 18 inches in the basement so we could actually use the space. The existing and the new basement slab height will remain the same. So we're not going to dig down further. We're going to keep the slab levels the same and build up from there. So we don't have to disrupt the bank too much. The boundaries of the tidal wetland have been identified and flagged. There's a report by William Kenny Associates, a soil scientist, and that's included with the documents. Inland wetlands were not found on the site. The upper portion above the bank is all well-drained soil, as it was found on site. Both the Inland Wetlands Department and City Engineering have both reviewed the project and given us the okay to proceed. We also had prepared a CAM report, which a little back and forth, and found out we didn't really need to go for a CAM application. We will be using the appropriate erosion and sedimentary controls for the construction. There will be no increase in roof or surface drainage from the project. The storm water mitigation has been waived by the city engineer. We're not really increasing any runoff. And he also stated there were no other outstanding engineering concerns. So the project has very little impact on the environment. If you look at the aerial photo that was included in the package, you'll see that the structure sits on a beautiful site by the Milford Harbor, largely in its natural state on the water's edge. It's to remain that way. In contrast to some of the neighboring properties, there's a commercial boatyard and a condo complex. So we're a very small project compared to, you can see the studio's tucked up in those trees, and it's pretty far away from the harbor. And we're going to leave it as natural as possible. That's the beauty of the site. So with that, that's the end of my presentation. I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant at this time? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. If anyone would like to come speak to the issue, please come to the podium. Seeing none, we will close the public comment period. And if there's no further questions, and without objection, we'll close the public hearing. And I'd hear a motion.
Good evening, Mr. Quish. This is regarding 40 Rogers Avenue, Zone R125. I move to approve, as presented, the petition of Joseph Cartaspati for a special permit with site plan review to modify an accessory building on map 44, block 409, parcel 2, of which Frank Ayana is the owner.
Motion.
I'll second.
We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, if you would, Sue, please call the roll.
Mr. Agnesi.
With the motion.
Mr. Allen.
With the motion.
Mr. Anderson.
With the motion.
Mr. Hirsch.
With the motion.
Mr. Collegian.
With the motion.
Mr. Macho.
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer.
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi.
With the motion.
Mr. Zaharidis.
I'm with the motion.
And Chairman Question.
Also with the motion. Motion passes. Good luck with your project. Next order of business is 62 West Main Street, Zone RO, petition of Thomas Lynch Esquire for a special exception with site plan review for a multifamily dwelling at map 85, block 313, parcel 13, of which West Main Milford LLC is the owner. Applicant has the floor.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Again, members of the board. For the record, my name is Thomas Lynch. I'm an attorney with the law firm Lynch, Trumdicki, and Boynton here in Milford. And I'm here tonight with my clients, Igai Bene and Joe Finta. My clients are the owners of the property under their LLC known as West Main Milford LLC. And we're before you with an application for a special exception to allow for the construction of a new 7-unit residential complex on this site. The property is located in the RO zone, which requires a certain percentage of office and residential in any building, so that necessitates this application being brought to you. On site is a rather dilapidated building that was built back in the early 1900s, some 2,400 square feet. The property is the or was the subject of a special exception approval back in 2008. It had previously been used as a law office, and Beverly Cafalis, our former probate judge, received a special exception at that time to turn her former office into a residential unit. So there is a little history here where this board in 2008 did approve a prior special exception for the property. The plan is to demolish the current building and replace it with 3 beautiful buildings that Joe Rousseau, a local architect who we're all familiar with his work, has put together. The elevations are part of the package that have been submitted to you. The property is roughly 4/10 of an acre, so it's fairly small in size. It is located in the downtown area, which, based on our plan of conservation and development, infill residential development in this area is encouraged. And I would say to you that the replacement of this building with the 3 new buildings and 5 additional units is minimal in terms of any sort of increase of density on the property, but the plans have been laid out so that there will be spacing, there will be a buffer, as David had noted in his review to you. We will have fencing between the other adjacent zones, but the engineered site plan has been well thought out. It's been reviewed by all the city departments. The city engineer found virtually no engineering comments were applicable to the project. The police commission approved the project in terms of traffic density and the sight lines along that stretch of West Main Street. And we appeared before the sewer commission as well in September and received approval from that commission. And then lastly, the plans were approved by the fire marshal. So I'm going to turn things over to Ron Wasmer, who's going to go through the details of the site plan. But I wanted to stress in my initial comments to you that this project it is conducive to the area. It's adjacent to a 9-unit residential complex. Next door, it's 68 West Main Street. It's virtually across the street from a 25-unit building that was approved and built by MetroStar some 8 years ago. So this area is conducive to a multifamily complex, and I think it's appropriate. So it asks that ultimately, after you hear Ron's comments, and if we can answer any questions you may have, ask that you approve this. Thanks.
Good evening. For the record, Ronald Wasmer, professional engineer, licensed land surveyor with an office at 158 Research Drive, Milford, here representing West Main Milford, LLC. Tom's done a great job giving a basic overview of the project. I'll try not to be too redundant. I'll briefly walk you through the site plan. What you see on the screen now is the landscape plan prepared by Matt Pop, a local landscape architect. He does a lot of work here in Milford. The parcel to the west is known as Milford Chase. That's approximately a 20-unit, 25-unit apartment building that was approved back in the early 2000s through a special exception. There is a residence to the east, single-family house, as well as residences to the north. It's bounded by West Main Street, and it's opposite the Parsons complex. I'm sure you're all familiar with the parcel. Matt did a good job in providing landscaping buffer to the single-family residence, as well as the existing apartment complex to the west. We're proposing 7 units. We have, they're typical townhouse units. Again, it's not to be redundant, designed by Joe Russo, local building designer here. We have also 7 exterior parking spaces as well as 7 interior parking spaces. So this exceeds the parking requirements that Milford currently has for one-bedroom units. These are one-bedroom townhouses with a den. The site is a level site. There's no engineering constraints. There was no negative comments from the city engineer. I do want to point out that in David's review, he made a comment about open space, and this is a very small parcel of land. We're providing much-needed housing. However, there's a significant amount of open space nearby with Watson's Field across the street, the duck pond adjacent to the property. So we could reduce the size of the project and provide a small portion of open space, but I don't know that it would be a really relevant use of the property as open space. However, I do believe we meet the requirements for the minimum open space. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. I think we've already taken a quick look at the building elevations.
Are there any questions at this time? Open. I think you just continue with the presentation as you thought it out. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that concludes our presentation. So again, if there's any questions that the board may have, we'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Okay, great. Without any specific questions now, go ahead. You done?
Yeah. Mr. Lynch, Attorney Lynch, good evening. How are you?
Good evening, Attorney Hirsch.
Good. And again, just so we're clear for the record, the buildings that are proposed all fit within the appropriate setbacks.
Correct. This is a zoning compliant application. This is not presented under Section 830G.
Thank you.
This is Mr. Sadie, go ahead.
Good evening. Also, Attorney Lynch.
Yes, Attorney Sadie.
You mentioned 830G. What considerations, if any, did you concerning affordable housing in this 7-unit program?
I anticipated that question tonight. So I actually discussed it with Mr. Sulkus, and I discussed it with my clients beforehand. And we understand that this is not a site plan application. This is a discretionary board application. So with that said, we are willing to offer that one of the units, which would constitute some 14% of the project, be set aside as an affordable unit to those families earning 80% or under in terms of the state income guidelines.
Thank you. And it is going to be a deed restricted portion of it, or is it just a good faith on part?
We can make it a deed restricted condition of the approval.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I don't know if the board has ever had that offered ahead of time before, but I anticipated that tonight. I know where the board is going with your regulations and your desire to encourage affordable housing, so we came here tonight prepared to offer that.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep.
Any further comments or questions before we open it up to the public? This is a public hearing, so if anyone would like to speak to the issue, please state your name and address for the board and try to keep your comments to about 3 minutes.
Yep. I am Bill Silver, 55 Governors Avenue here in Milford. I come here in a neutral position. I am the chairman of the Milford Historic Preservation Commission. It is an aldermanic commission, and essentially we sprang from the aldermen in 2015 when they were concerned about the loss of historic properties in the city. The purpose of that 2015 ordinance was to protect the historic and architectural character of properties in the city, lying within historic districts. To give you the background and just the facts, without elaboration, Article 21 of the city ordinances essentially created the Historic Preservation Commission, where between the three commissions, we have the responsibility to provide that protection for historic properties. There were rules stipulated in that ordinance by the aldermen, which gave the MHPC the authority to approve or disapprove certificates of COAs, appropriateness for the properties. We have a specific process, application, a lot of information on the city website that is available to any applicant, and we have heard numerous applications over the 9 years of our existence. I'll quickly close by essentially giving you the other facts, is that this property is part of the National Historic Register listing for the River Park Historic District. It is a broad district, more than just the center around the duck ponds. It deals with historic properties north, south, east, and west of the center of town. This application was approved and the district created in 1986, so it's been around for 40 years. This property is 1865, an Italian structure at the time that it was surveyed by the applicants for the National River Park Historic District. So it clearly is a historic property. And then last but not least, I guess I'd like to remind what we worked on together in the POCD back in October of last year was the goal of historic goals within your purview, and that is summarized in it: protect and preserve historic assets in the city of Milford. And with that, I'll say no more.
Thank you. If anyone else would like to speak, please come up.
Hi, Michael Ranella, Milford resident since 1974. I'd like to speak
I'm
about...
sorry, and your address for the record, we just need to have it.
52 West Main Street. I'd like to speak about how a change like this affects existing homeowners in the area. My wife and I purchased the home in 2014. It was neglected and a bit run down, but it was owned as residential office and afforded us the opportunity for my wife to have an office at our house. We acquired the approvals and did the necessary remodeling, and in addition, keeping in mind the original look of the home. After completing it, we set about rehabbing the rest of the exterior and grounds. We've now moved on to the interior rehab and improvements. Much of the work done by her and myself. Currently, we're scheduled to meet with the architect and a contractor for another small addition. Why do I mention all these details? Because we used to really like the look of downtown Milford. Increasingly, though, we see old homes torn down, 7, 10, or more condos being allowed where there was once a single-family or two-family home. I travel to many towns in my business, always notice and appreciate the towns that strive to maintain an aesthetic that comes with vintage homes. Has anyone ever commented, "I really like that condo complex they put in between those old homes"? As condos and even apartment-style buildings become more popular in outlying residential areas, it becomes increasingly important to protect the downtown River Park Historic District, which is where 62 West Main is obviously located. While my wife and I, along with the rest of the neighborhood, have strived to keep our properties clean and hopefully a source of pride to downtown Milford, the current owners of 62 West Main have not. Shortly after taking possession, we noticed that the lawn was not being cut for long periods of time. In fact, as we walked by on several occasions, we noticed garbage blown into the lawn, stuck in the high grass. Our dogs also started pulling us into the lawn to chase some of the animals that started to take up residence in the front yard. I began to check into filing a complaint with the city. Then one day, I saw a group of people gathered in the driveway and asked them if anyone knew how to get in touch with the owner. One person stated that he was the owner. I asked him why he would not be keeping up the maintenance and I would be filing a complaint. Shortly after that, his tenant started cutting the lawn. So I asked, why would we allow a person who obviously has no regard or respect for the neighborhood or the neighbors to tear down a historic home and put in something that will likely end up being an eyesore in more ways than one. If this exception is granted, our property value will suffer. We will have no choice but to question our intentions of improving the house further and consider selling at some point before all the old homes are converted and the downtown becomes a collection of condos and apartments, all looking very much the same and frankly, characterless. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? If you would please name and address for the board, keep your comments about 3 minutes, and please don't say anything personal about any applicant.
I will
Thank
do
you.
what I can. My name is Glenn Houghton, and I am the homeowner of 56 West Main Street, which was referenced as the property to the east of this property. My family moved to Milford in 1966, and my parents still live here after 58 years. The project would create, in my opinion, an extreme hardship for me to maintain my property, not to mention the potential for damage to the home that I have. My house was built in the 1860s, similar to the other one, so I know what it dilapidated, word that Attorney Lynch used. I think most of what's there is cosmetic, in my own opinion. The bones are good. I've seen it in my own home. Long before any zoning regs existed, the house was built, unfortunately, within 5 feet of the property line. I didn't put it there. I can't move it. I can't change that. What's being proposed will not only encroach upon my property, but will likely cause considerable damage in several ways. The proposed trees that you see along there to be planted along that narrow patch of lawn, which is only 8 feet wide, if they plant them somewhere in the middle, that'll be 8 to 9 feet off the side of my home. The trees they're proposing there, Armstrong red maples, are fast-growing trees that reach a height of 50 to 60 feet with a width of 15 to 25 feet, which means that the trees will only need to reach a width of approximately 18 feet before they actually touch my home. Even in the drawings, the architect actually illustrates them almost touching my home already. The root system of a tree this size, as you can imagine, is very likely going to cause severe damage to the old stone foundation that I have. At 50 feet tall, I'm obviously going to have to get up and clean gutters again. And I don't see how I can put a ladder along that side of the house with trees like that. Nor would I be able to put a ladder along that side of the house if they choose to put a fence there along the property line. If it's only 5 feet off, to go up 30 feet, I need a minimum of 8 feet to foot that ladder safely. Anybody wants to go up a ladder any differently, I wish you luck. The arborvitae they plan to plant along the back part of the property in between those trees also grow to about 30 feet, but have been known to grow much taller. And again, the root systems, we just put in a patio in back there. Those are going to grow and encroach on our property and likely do damage to the patio and heaving of that patio. Over the past few years, my wife and I have put over $125,000 into renovating this property to be at the top, what we feel something we're proud of and the town can be proud of. These trees will render every window along that side of my home relatively useless. Due to the proximity of the property line, I mentioned this before about the fence, it just won't work. Add to all of this the fact that we just contracted to have a solar system installed, and I can't back out of that now. In a very short time, those trees at 50 to 60 feet will reduce my energy production from that solar system by half. I had a market analysis of the property done by my real estate agent, who, by the way, is a lifelong resident of Milford. Her family's been here, and she's been a real estate agent in Milford for more than 30 years. In her professional opinion, this project, if allowed, would reduce my property value by over $100,000. It's a lot of money. It's clear that this project was designed with absolutely no thought or consideration of the surrounding properties, and certainly with no forethought as to what it's going to look like 10, 15 years down the road as these plants grow. Even the plants that they're proposing along the buffer zone in back, they're called green giant evergreens. in a 10-foot wide buffer zone. Those evergreens are 60 feet tall. Those arborvitae, they're 60 feet tall and grow up to 20 feet wide, and they have 2 rows of them proposed. I don't, for the life of me, understand how 2 rows of 20 feet wide trees are going to fit in a 10-foot buffer zone. So again, I just think there was a lack of forethought or consideration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Joe Simoncic. I live at 61 Governors Avenue, Milford. I'm here to oppose the project proposed. This project will demolish yet another one of Milford's old historic buildings. This building dates back well over 100 years and is part of the River Park Historic District, which is listed in the National Registry of Historic Places. It has a distinctive architectural design that will not be duplicated by any stretch of imagination by the apartment building that will replace it. It takes an inviting building with a front porch facing the street and jams in a perpendicular set of structures with no connection to the street. What we'll be left looking at from the street is a blank sidewall on a parking lot. This is a great detraction from the neighborhood that includes some of the oldest houses in town and some of the most iconic Milford landmarks. While this building may not be in the best shape now, we know that most of the finest homes in town have gone through some period of neglect. While it might take some time, some changing of hands to find the right person that will actually love this house and take care of it, if this project goes through, the house is destroyed, it'll never come back. We'll never get it back again. This zone isn't, the zone in this area is RO, so what is the purpose of RO? I believe it is in part to save buildings just like this, allowing for an office on the ground floor and residents on upper floors, like many of the historic buildings we see along West Main and onto Cherry Street. The RO zone requirements state that the design shall be in such a manner as to be compatible with the lot and in harmony with the general character and appearance of the surrounding neighborhood, and shall not be of such unreasonable length as to be adversely affect the general character and appearance of the surrounding neighborhood. This development attempts to maximize profits by sliding the building in sideways. It's not in the character of the neighborhood. What will be visible is a blank side, again, a blank side wall might as well be a warehouse that we're looking at. Our public officials keep talking, we really value the historic downtown of our Milford, but here's another example, just like 1719 Cherry Street, 147 Broad Street, where an iconic, historic building of significant architectural design is being demolished to make room for more apartment complexes. These are going to be rented out to people moving in from wherever, probably from New York City, along with, the hundreds of thousands of people leaving New York City. And they're looking for, I don't blame them, they're looking for historic charm, but we are just destroying the historic charm of this city. Every month we come here, there's another historic building being demolished. So I think, this proposal is not what the zoning requires. People in Milford look to this board to defend our zoning, and so I think it should be declined. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening. I'm Robbie Silver, 55 Governors Avenue. 45 years ago, when I moved from upstate New York to Connecticut, I didn't know anything about this area. I drove up and down the sea line, and I drove through central Milford, and I was like, wow, someday I would love to live there. I can't afford it now, but I hope I can move there. And my dream came true, and I do live in the downtown area, and I have loved it because it was charming and beautiful, and I love old houses. I grew up in a 1700 house. I live in an old house now. But I am so concerned that Milford is so quickly letting its history and charm be destroyed. And that's what we are so proud of. We hear it all the time from our elected officials. We're so proud of the charm of Milford, but we are not doing anything to save it. This board has the ability, and what's more, the responsibility to be the gatekeeper of POCD that was brought forth last year. And I don't even know if when these plans come up, if things are posed to the developer about maintaining a historic 1865 building, putting some apartments in the back, working on not only getting some housing, which I know we need, but maintaining the historical concept of our city that is so important. I think that it's a simple win-win when you can work together to save the historic aspects and then maybe put something behind, but we need to be sure that we are protecting the integrity of our neighborhoods and maintaining the charm of Milford. I oppose this development as it's brought to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address this issue? Okay, the applicant has a rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to highlight some of the comments that I made during my presentation and then to supplement those comments, addressing some of the neighbors' remarks, I'd like to again stress the fact that this is located in the downtown zone. It's located in the RO zone. This is an application that is presented to you that depicts a project that is conducive to the area. As I mentioned to you, it's adjacent to one large apartment complex and across the street from another one. In terms of Mr. Houghton's comments about the landscaping, it's incumbent upon my clients to maintain the landscaping. We show you a site plan that lays out a landscape plan as in with any other application. It's the landowner's responsibility to maintain those shrubs, maintain those plantings. I'm told by Ron Wasmer that the buffer plantings will not grow to a height of 50 feet, so I dispute the comment that Mr. Houghton made there. But in terms of them encroaching on his property, they'll be maintained so that they don't. And then lastly, I don't want to delve too much into the comments from Mr. Silver. He's the chairman of the Milford Historic Preservation Commission. He's well aware of the legal position that I have taken, as well as Attorney Hollister has taken on the application that was approved by this board on at 1719 Cherry Street, and the jurisdiction of the Milford Historic Preservation Commission to issue a certificate of appropriateness on this project and on that project. We dispute the legality of the ordinance. We claim that the ordinance itself was defective in the way that it was drafted, and this is not the forum for us to be making this argument. I'm just saying to you that in terms of any consideration of the historic nature of this house, I'm going to read into the record a quote from the Connecticut Land Practice book, Section 9, Land Use Practice, the 12th chapter, 4th edition, and the quote there is, "Historic properties may also be protected to some extent by applying for and listing them on the National Register of Historic Places pursuant to 16 U.S. Code annotated Section 470, but the listing of structures or buildings does not prevent their alteration or demolition, and the main significance for a listing on the National Register of Historic Places is to obtain federal funds for their preservation." So again, this is an argument for a different forum. We're before the Planning and Zoning Board with an application for a special exception in claiming that this project is zoning compliant, it's in conformity with the area, and I'd ask that you limit your consideration of the application just to that and approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you. The public will have a chance to speak to anything Attorney Lynch just said. Please do not reiterate what you already said, but if there's something specific to what Attorney Lynch said, you're welcome to come up and rebut.
I can't rebut his comment that this
Come up to the microphone.
I can't rebut his comment that those trees are not going to grow. I got this from an Arboretum Society. with the statistics on those trees that they're proposing, and it says 50 to, am I reading this wrong? 50 to 60 feet, 15 to 25 feet wide? I'm happy to give.
No, don't address anyone else, just the board, please, thank you.
I'm happy to give the board. I brought copies if you would like to see the stats that I gave you.
You're welcome to give it to Mr. Sulkus.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, okay. Again, if you would make sure that there's nothing personal. Thank you very much.
It is personal because I live there.
No, not to an individual. Address the board only, thank you.
The point being, he said about the trees and everything being overgrown. My point of, they didn't maintain the property now. So what leads us to believe that they're going to maintain the property in the future? That's my point. Thank you.
Thank you. You have one last bite at the apple? You're all set? Okay, so without objection, we will close the public comment period, and if there's any questions from the board to the applicant, now's the time to do it.
I have a question for the applicant.
Who?
You said a question for the applicant.
You're welcome to ask a question.
But you closed the public hearing, sorry.
Public comment.
Attorney Lynch, good evening. Your position is that certificate of appropriateness is not appropriate for us to consider because why?
Well, it's not part of this application. My point is that there is currently an ordinance that says that a house that is in the National Registry of Historic Spots or the River Park District in the city of Milford is supposed to go before the Milford Historic Preservation Commission and get a certificate of appropriateness. And the comment that I made was there's a flaw in that ordinance, and there may very well be legal action that's going to have to decide whether or not that step of the process is necessary.
All right, is there current legal action pending on this issue?
No.
There is not. Okay. Who would institute such a legal action in the courts? Would that be the applicant, or would that be the Milford Historical Society?
I think if this board granted an application to my client, granted a special exception to my client, and he sought to either demolish the building or get a building permit, there may be an opinion from the city attorney that'll state what the next step is, and if we dispute that, it could end up in a court matter.
The reason why I ask is because you're saying this is not the proper form, yet you indicate that this property was subject to a special exception in 2008. We're not a common law court. We're not bound by decisions of prior actions by this board in terms of this property, are we?
No, I'm well aware of that. I merely made that as part of my record to show that there was a prior special exception granted for this property.
Right, but we're not a common law court. We're not bound by prior decisions made with regards to other applications on this property. We're here to decide this particular use and issue. Isn't that correct?
I couldn't agree with you more strongly.
Right. And to that effect, that nice lady back there, the concerned neighbor, mentioned that I believe her words were work together. Have you or your clients discussed working together with the resident at 56 West Main Street to come up with a plan that would not impact his property?
No.
Why not?
I wasn't aware there was a concern until we came here tonight.
Would you consider working with him? Not you and or your clients consider working with him?
Absolutely.
Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. Attorney Lynch.
Yes.
Was the property actively marketed on the multiple listing service? And if so, how long was it on the market?
When my clients bought it, Brian, they bought it some 3-4 years ago. It was listed on the multiple listing, correct?
How long had it been marketed?
I have no idea. 6 months maybe. 2 months?
Thank you. Just to be clear, it wasn't your clients that bought the property, it was an LLC that bought the property, right?
Correct.
Thank you. Well, that's a distinction. Now, LLC is a corporate entity. They didn't buy it in their individual capacity, they bought it as an LLC.
I'm well aware of that, Attorney Hirsch, well aware of that. Thanks.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I would close the public hearing and hear a motion.
This is 62 West Main Street. I move to approve with the following modifications. Petition of Thomas Lynch for Esquire for a special exception with site plan review for multifamily dwelling at map 85, block 313, parcel 13, of which West Main Milford LLC is the owner. The modification is that one unit of the 7 to be dedicated to 80% of the standards set by General Statute CGS 830G, as agreed to by the applicant. Thank you.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Sadi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. One of the things that's important is that we do listen, and we have listened to all of you, and we have to make this motion. We have a vote on that. I do want to comment that those people that spoke have very good and sufficient reasons to say what they had to say, and we're listening to them. I'm also mindful of the fact that we have a severe housing problem in the city, along with the state. We also have a severe problem of affordable and available housing. I do recognize that this could have been an application that we would have had no control over whatsoever if it was done by the state statute. This is showing an applicant and owners of property that are willing to assist the problem we have, which is not having a lot of affordable nor available housing. So that's why I made the motion. We'll listen to the other board members on their votes, but I think we have to recognize that it's a difficult question, and we have to strike an appropriate balance to help all the citizens of Milford. And I definitely know that I'm listening to everything that's been said by those people opposing it, as well as the applicants. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Ethan.
Yeah, I think that the issue with this particular application is we have a very concerned member of the public as to the effect on his property. And I believe that if there was some discussion between that individual and the applicant today, I think we could have avoided a lot of my questioning on this. And I wonder if perhaps they may want to take a few minutes and discuss before we vote, if maybe they can come to a resolution and come to a vote.
Well, I think that what we have, Ethan, is that we have the applicant's commitment to work with the neighborhood, and we have a motion, and we have a second. So we're going to have to address the motion amongst ourselves and just trust the good intentions of the applicant to do their best with the neighbor. That was what was presented by Attorney Lynch. Any other questions or comments? I'd like to say that this is a RO district, so that it's not a surprise that there are certain things that are permitted without board approval that would probably not alleviate any of the concerns that the neighbors have. So it wouldn't even have gotten to this forum. And as I hear the voices talk about the POCD and that we are hoping to protect the history of Milford, we also have to look forward and look for affordable housing and housing in general, which some of the members here have brought up, that the more housing we have, the less price pressure there is. So it becomes slowly a little bit more affordable, and we do have the offer of one unit. That's all I have to say. If there's nothing else, we would call the roll.
Mr. Agnesi.
Against the motion.
Mr. Allen.
With the motion.
Mr. Anderson.
I'm with the motion.
Mr. Hirsch,
Against the motion.
Mr. Collegian,
I'm with the motion.
Mr. Machio,
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer,
I'm against the motion.
Mr. Sadi,
With the motion.
Mr. Zaharidis,
Against.
Chairman Quish.
I'm with the motion.
The motion fails. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are only 6 votes. You need 7 to pass the motion.
Okay, thank you. Next order of business is old business. We have none. Liaison report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did have a regional meeting of which board members should have received 2 matters that were discussed at the most recent meeting, which was last Thursday, regarding the issue of affordable housing, 830G. So again, that's part of the, I suggest will be part of the discussion we'll have later on in tonight's meeting.
We have next order of business is approval of the minutes of 6 November. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
Second.
Without exception. Minutes are approved. We also have received minutes for the special meeting of 11/13. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, without objection?
Abstained.
Yep. Okay, so 3 abstentions, and without exception, beyond that, we're approved, okay? Chair's report is, we did have a special meeting. Not everyone was able to attend, but we did talk about the CDD2 and the need for housing there, and also the opportunity to just take a deeper dive into those specific regulations in CDD2, see what's there, and see if we can rethink it. Similar to the RO district that was created a while ago, it was created under different economic conditions. So this also, it deserves another look. I know that David has put some effort into and has a plan to put some more effort into presenting us with some more details and potential opportunities for CDD2. David, if you would clue us in.
Yeah. So at the special meeting, I presented the beginnings of some thinking about what we can do to promote housing, because just very briefly, the regulations as they currently exist in that zone are very friendly for 1 and 2 family dwellings, and then for dwellings or the creation of dwellings if you have 2 acres or more, nothing in between. So you got a taste of that when 249 Bridgeport Avenue came to you, and they were looking for a regulation change to actually change the language, actually add some words to the language that existed so it matches downtown. So that would create an opportunity for something in between those 2 ends of the spectrum. So since the meeting on the special meeting that took place, I listened to some of the comments of the board, and I then continued to fill out a proposed regulation, which I gave to you as a draft. It's not complete, because what I'm in the process of doing is I'm going to do an analysis of the zone on a parcel level, because it'll be very important to understand how many parcels we have that fall into different categories. The current zoning there allows 1 and 2 family houses on 2,000 square foot lots. How many 2,000 square foot lots do we have? How many 5,000 square foot lots do we have? How many lots do we have, in some other ranges? And in knowing that, that would be helpful to, when further formulating a regulation, getting a better sense as to how a particular size parcel can be filled. what kind of building coverage, lot coverage could we have to either maintain or create a new and hopefully improved character in that zone that would include the opportunity for more housing, something that might be, more in scale. The committee on the special meeting, we talked about height bonuses, and the more I thought about it, depending on what the height is, maybe it's better to have a coverage bonus because, although there are some tall buildings in that zone, in the proximity of that zone, maybe having the option to, spread out a little more might be more palatable. But until the analysis is done as to what's there, I don't really know how we should, tweak the regs. But I want to have the best information possible for you so you can, make those decisions.
Great, I like that. And what's the timeline on that? When do you think you would be in a position to have something to
I think
present to us?
January,
Okay.
because of the holidays and vacations, and I have to work with our GIS person who, he's away right now, and then I'll be going away for Thanksgiving, and then, December comes along, and it's just busy. So I think January, I'll have that information.
Understood, okay. Is there anybody who wants to speak to the issue in general? Mr. Sadie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to bring the board members up to date what I had said in my earlier part of the liaison report. So the documents you were provided earlier today come out of our package we get, similar to anyone we get in the meetings. The town of Woodbridge is in our district. The town of Southington is not, but it is adjoining our district. So there's two different ways that they are looking at dealing with affordable housing, and that's what you received from Mr. Sulkus this morning. And probably 2 weeks ago, you received an ability to see a YouTube video on 830G in the discussion. And one of the things I saw about it is, and I think I made a comment at the meeting last week, was that, we don't have to be so afraid of it, but we have to be mindful of the rules. But more importantly, the individual who did speak said that we should find out some questions, we can call them up. And I told the chair, if it's okay with the board members, I'll do so. Because we do need to have as much information, see what's happening in different areas close to us, but across the state, and the numbers. So I think you'll see in Woodbridge, one is a 12% number, one is a 20% number. Southington, I don't have right in front of me, but the point is that, again, with permission of the board and the chair, I can do more of a deep dive in it and try to get the information, because, again, the chair wants, and I know the board wants, as much information to make an informed decision if we're going to make changes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, I'd make a broad statement. If any member wants to do some research on their own and be able to present it to the full board at any time, please have at it. Go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, I couldn't attend the special meeting on Wednesday, but I did watch it, and I am very grateful for those of you who did attend. I thought it was a very productive conversation. I am really encouraged by the proposals that I'm seeing so far. I think that obviously, the details are going to evolve as more research is done and as we hear from the public, but I think that these kinds of changes are really going to help not only with housing in that area and in our city, but I think also for the businesses that are located along that corridor. I think this is going to be a really positive change, so thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else before we go to the staff report? Okay, staff report.
None this evening, thank you.
Okay, without objection, we're adjourned.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody, also.